Hello and welcome to Devlog number 1 for RealBlocks VR, an application I'm building in Unity 3D. I haven't made any videos in quite a while, basically because I'm back in school at a fairly large university here in Northern Virginia. I've been learning a few things, about programming. I'm back in school for computer science, so you'd hope that would be the case. Uh, Mainly we use Java in school, but which has become probably the language I'm most familiar with now, but it is startlingly similar to C Sharp, which is what you use to program stuff in Unity 3D, so that's good. This is RealBlocks. This application, the whole point of it is to build things in VR as if you are 10 times smaller than you are in real life. And you get a real hands-on experience with playing with some blocks, some plastic bricks. And at some point, in the future, near future, I'm going to have it so that you can actually interact with the structures that you build. Right now, you can just walk right through them, which really isn't that fun. But yeah, I'd like it so that you could build like a building and then walk up in it, you know. And so as of right now, you just put a block down and then another one falls out of the sky. Could probably use some sound effects for that too. You can see that the environment is a classroom, and I'm really gonna work on that, make it look a little bit better. And you can I don't know if you guys noticed it, but the bloom is probably a little bit out of control out of control in the environment right now. Didn't look quite as strong in VR, but yeah, watching it on the video here, I can tell I needed to probably turn it down a little bit. So you can tell this is like pre-alpha, alpha, beta version. Still working on it. But yeah, so you can just build stuff and sort of like a make your own adventure type thing. I'm envisioning, if you've seen my previous videos or any of them, I know they're old now, but where you have like a squirt gun, maybe have a squirt gun fight in the environment you build, which leads me to the other, component that's obviously missing is I'd like to make this multiplayer, at least in some way, shape, or form. I think there's a lot to be said about sharing an environment that you can, you know, collaboratively build in. There's been a few applications and games I've worked on that had that sort of feature that was really turned out to be the main component of it that made them worthwhile. So you can see here that the blocks they're currently built on what's referred to as a disjoint set type scheme, which is sort of like an array of trees. If you're familiar with any of that, um, which I did on purpose. I was doing everything I could to keep it as a disjoint set, just because the code and the operations that the blocks would have to go through in order to rationalize themselves with each other. It kept it really simple comparatively. But as you can see here, you can't snap on a block except on top of the overall structure, and that is lame. Okay, so I've come to that conclusion. I don't think disjoint set's is gonna work. Mainly, you can't do that in a disjoint set because that creates what's referred to as a cycle. And anyway, with a graph structure, if you had another block on top of these two blocks here, and then you pulled it away, those two blocks have to know that they're no longer connected to each other. And depending on how complex the structure is, that becomes a very complex operation. They have to recursively search throughout each other to see if they're still connected every time you pull them apart. Now, I don't, that isn't like a constant operation. It's not like happening every frame. So I'm not sure if that will really be a big deal or not. But I know from just writing the code from that standpoint, with the disjoint set, it was a lot simpler. Not to say that any of this was simple. Getting these blocks to connect was way more complicated than I think I thought it would be at first glance. But it's obviously possible. It works and everything. But yeah, I'm gonna have to rewrite it as a graph structure. So that's my next main goal. I just want to get a really good foundation on the blocks and how they work and how functional they are, and just and go from there before I start adding features. The core feature I think needs to be pretty functional, which is the blocks pulling apart and going back together. Now, as you can see here, the blocks have weight. So these two blocks have those are the biggest blocks, so they're the heaviest. But when you start adding blocks on top, they start reacting to the user input more sluggishly. As of right now, when you're grabbing the blocks, they don't really have an effective gravity, which is something else I have to implement. But yeah, they do get heavier, and they react more sluggishly to the user's input, the position of the hand, rotation of the hand, etc. But you pull them apart, and then they'll regain their prior nimbleness to just being separate blocks. But you can see here, as I plant this guy in the ground, it is very it was kind of illuminating how much of a tree structure this is, these disjoint sets. And I mean, when you can only put things on top, and the blocks branch out, it literally becomes a tree, as opposed to the usual representation of a tree you'll see in computer science type stuff, computer sciencey stuff, where the tree is upside down. These trees literally grow out of the ground, which is kind of neat, but that will probably not be the case for much longer. And as you can see, each block keeps track of the blocks on top of it, so if you grab a block at its root, you can pull up and all the blocks on top will go with it, and then you can rearrange it. So I don't mean to make it sound like this disjoint set scheme I have is completely useless. It isn't. You can do some neat stuff, and as you can see in the background there, you can make some walls. There are walls there, but those are really just trees on top of trees. Like they're just next to each other, interwoven, but they're not connected. They're unaware of each other, which again is kind of lame. Even though it works somewhat well in some scenarios, I don't think it gives the user the degrees of freedom that I'd like to give the user. But in any case, I'll be rewriting that, I guess, over the next week or so, trying to get it to work. I will be turning down the bloom, which is just out of control right now. I'm going to be adding more stuff to the classroom. I'm going to have to add levels of detail out the butt for these blocks. Like, they're going to need a lot of levels of detail. I'd like to get it down to, just an 8 vert. And there you go again. You can't connect the disjoint sets from anywhere other than the top, which is a bummer, but whatever. But yeah, it's going to need levels of detail for each block. I'd like to get them down to 8 verts per block at the lowest level, just for maximum efficiency. All of these blocks I think are somewhere in the realm of like 1,000 verts each, and Unity's actually handling it pretty well for the amount of objects that are on screen at once. None of the objects in this scene are lauded out at all, so Unity's handling it pretty well. But yeah, that's something. Optimization is something I'm gonna have to really focus on, because I'd like hundreds, if not thousands of these things on the screen at once. As an overall goal. Maybe that's being a little bit optimistic, but yeah, that's where I'd like to go. Anyway, thanks for watching. Any feedback would be appreciated. See you next time.